Okay, so as we discussed that this is a setup, this is a very primitive setup. This was done before 1900, in the late 19th century, 1800 and something. It was done by Lumiere and Pringsheim, and this was basically a very primitive setup to study and analyze the energy distribution for a black body, the radiation that is emitted from black body. To study that energy distribution, this setup was made. Okay, Lumiere and Pringsheim's experiment. Now, what is more important than the setup is this, the distribution, and we discussed this distribution, energy distribution with respect to wavelength in detail in our last class. So basically we'll just recap what the observations were. First of all, as you can see, and this is a very important graph, and this is a very important set of observations that often comes in your examinations. What we see is that at a given temperature, energy is not uniformly distributed, as you can see. Okay, if you take a particular temperature, then we see that the intensity of the energy radiated, it increases with increasing wavelength, and at a particular wavelength that is denoted by lambda m, it reaches a maximum beyond which this intensity decreases again. Okay, when the temperature is increased, the value of lambda m shifts towards a lower value. Okay, the value of lambda m decreases, so that the product lambda m into T is a constant. The energy emission increases with increasing temperature for all wavelengths. As you can see that for higher and higher temperature, the emission increases. And finally, the area under each curve gives the total energy emitted by the body at that temperature for the range of wavelengths under consideration. So if you consider the range, just a second. Hello? Hello? Yes? Yes? Yes, hello? So if you consider the range of wavelengths that are covered, then it is seen that the total energy emitted at that temperature is the area under that particular graph. Okay, and it is seen that this area varies as 4th power of temperature, which we all can identify as the Stefan-Boltzmann law. Okay, so lambda mt equal to constant, that is also a very important law, that is Wien's displacement law, which was given in 1893. So basically from this curve here, we got a number of classical laws, which were all observational laws, and they were all also trying to explain the nature of this curve. Clear? First of this kind of law was the Wien's displacement law. This is an experimental law, not trying to explain anything, but just an observation that lambda mt equal to constant. So if you plot the energy intensity versus lambda for different temperatures, you will see that lambda mt equal to constant. On the other hand, if you plot it against frequency, you will see that T divided by frequency is a constant, because lambda and frequency are reciprocal to each other. Okay, not reciprocal to each other, but inversely related. So it was found again experimentally that this constant has this value 0.2892 centimeter Kelvin, and this law was used to calculate several things, wavelength of if the wavelength of sun was considered, of rays coming in from the sun at different temperatures, then making it impinge on a black body and then getting the radiation and calculating it, temperature of the sun could be estimated, and so on and so forth. Now it was also noted by Wien, it was shown by Wien that Em is proportional to T to the power 5, so that Em T to the power minus 5 equal to a constant. And therefore we can write E lambda remember these definitions, the spectral emissivity E lambda is C lambda to the power minus 5 multiplied by some function of lambda t, some function of the product lambda t. So f of lambda t. All right. So he took a plausible assumption that the function f of lambda t is of this form, e to the power minus a by lambda t. All right. So from this you get an expression for E lambda with a particular value of K and A. K is of course Boltzmann constant. And from this he gave us an estimate of E lambda d lambda, that is D, that is the amount of energy in the spectral region lying within wavelengths lambda and lambda plus d lambda at the temperature T. Okay. So dE comes out to be K lambda to the power minus 5 e to the power minus a by lambda t d lambda. Now this is known as Wien's law of energy distribution, and it was seen that it matches the curve only at shorter wavelengths and lower temperatures. So the curve of blackbody radiation that we get, Wien tried to fit it with a numerical expression, and he gave an expression which showed that the energy, this value E lambda d lambda varies as lambda to the power minus 5, and it was seen that this matched only at shorter wavelengths and lower temperatures, but not for the entire range. So it failed to match the curve for the entire range. So obviously it was not the correct expression that was required to match the experimental curve. And then came Rayleigh-Jean's law, which was again a theoretical attempt. Now Wien's law was he just tried to give a mathematical expression, you know, the way we try to fit experimental curves with a straight line if they look like a straight line. So similarly Wien's law was just that. But Rayleigh and Jeans, they actually tried to put a theory, they tried to formulate a theory to explain the experimental curves. And as we know that they assumed that the radiation inside the black body consisted of wavelength that varied from 0 to infinity continuously. Okay. So the law of Rayleigh and Jeans looks like this: E lambda d lambda equal to 8 pi kt by lambda to the power 4. So whereas Wien's distribution law gives the variation of E lambda d lambda as lambda to the power minus 5, Rayleigh and Jeans law gave the energy distribution as lambda to the power minus 4. Okay, but again I will not go through the derivation today. We did the derivation in our previous class, so I will not go to the detail of derivation because then we lose class time, precious class time. What was found that the expression that was obtained, n nu d nu equal to 4a by c d nu, which is the number of allowed standing waves for a one-dimensional cavity, and which finally gave the value of n nu d nu for the entire cavity, that is 8 pi a cube by c cube nu square d nu. And finally, this is the expression that is obtained, E nu d nu. So now we are speaking in terms of frequency, is 8 pi kt by c cube nu square d nu. This is Rayleigh-Jean's formula for blackbody radiation in terms of frequency. You must have done this when you did your quantum theory also in your second sem. Again, this is a law that matches, or this is a mathematical expression that matches the experimental curve only at longer wavelengths and at higher temperatures. So whereas Wien's distribution law matches the experimental law only at lower wavelengths and lower temperatures, Rayleigh and Jean's expression matches the experimental law at longer wavelengths and higher temperatures. Okay. So none of the two laws match the experimental curves entirely. So they must have gone wrong somewhere. Okay. So finally, we did a comparative discussion on the experimental and the classical uh, laws that try to explain the experimental observation for black body radiation. Okay. So this is the experimental curve. Remember, this is in terms of frequency. So you must be able to identify whether the curve is in terms of frequency or wavelength just by looking at it. When it is in terms of wavelength, the maximum value shifts to lower values of wavelengths with higher temperature. When it is in terms of frequency, the maximum value shifts to higher values of frequency with higher temperatures. Okay, so this you must very well keep in mind. You had written this part in terms of, not in terms of statistical mechanics, which we are going to do now, but in terms of just simple quantum theory in your second sem. I had corrected your paper. I had found several mistakes in this understanding. You were not able to draw the curves properly with respect to frequency and wavelength. There was a lot of discrepancies clearly showing that you had not understood. Okay, so you have to remember that when it is in terms of frequency, the maximum value shifts to higher frequencies. F max shifts to a higher value with increasing temperature. When it is in terms of wavelength, then lambda max shifts to lower values with higher temperature. Okay, so which is why I gave both the pictures side by side so that you are able to identify and understand. Okay, so these are the experimental curves with in terms of frequency. Okay, I've also circled them for you to understand better. So basic, and this red curve here is basically Wien's displacement law, lambda mt equal to constant. Now, this is what Wien gave us, d equal to k by lambda to the power 5 e to the power minus a by lambda t d lambda. And this is what Rayleigh-Jeans gave us, e lambda d lambda equal to 8 pi kt by lambda to the power 4 d lambda. Okay. The first one, Wien's law, fails at large wavelengths, and this one fails at short wavelengths. Okay. So finally, we have this. This is the experimental curve. The solid line is the experimental curve. The dashed line, the large dashes, it gives us Wien's law, whereas the small dashes give us Rayleigh-Jeans law. And as you can see that both the theoretical curves do not match with the experimental curves in entirety. In fact, Rayleigh-Jeans law at shorter wavelengths shows that or predicts that the energy, the total energy, will be going to infinite values. As you can see that as we go to shorter wavelengths, this curve is moving towards infinite values, which is absurd, and this is what is known as, you know, that. Can someone tell me what it is known as? The failure of Rayleigh-Jeans law at shorter wavelengths? Can someone unmute and tell me? Failure of Rayleigh-Jeans law at shorter wavelengths, what is this called? No one? Yes, someone.
Ultraviolet catastrophe.
Yes, ultraviolet catastrophe. Ultraviolet means shorter wavelengths, and it is seen that if Rayleigh-Jeans law were true, then at shorter wavelengths, the total energy radiated would go to infinite values. That is, the energy would increase infinitely, which all of us know is impossible. It's a total failure. The law is a total failure for short wavelengths, and this blowing up of the energy value at short wavelengths is known as ultraviolet catastrophe. Okay, this also you must go through once again, because many of you wrote answers that were not relevant to the actual issue. This was also a question that came in your second sem, and I remember very clearly that I got answers that were not relevant to the actual thing. Understanding was not clear. Okay. So failure of classical theory to explain black body radiation. First of all, Rayleigh-Jean's law, it says that energy density continuously increases with increasing frequency, and at frequency tends to infinity, energy tends to infinity. Also, at any temperature T, the total energy, which from the experimental curves we know that is given by the area under the curve and varies as T to the power 4, which is in accordance with Stefan Boltzmann's law. But if you follow Rayleigh-Jean's theoretical expression, then the total energy comes out to be infinity, which again is absurd. Okay. So in terms of frequency also, I have given the three curves for a comparison. So this blue line is the experimental curve. This is Rayleigh-Jean's. As you increase frequency, it goes to infinite values, and this is Wien's law, which again is not a perfect match. Okay. So in terms of wavelength and in terms of frequency, for both I have given the comparative values, and how classical theory for shorter wavelengths it goes to infinity, and if you talk in terms of frequency, then for higher frequencies it goes to infinity. And this absurd result, as you pointed out, is known as ultraviolet catastrophe. Okay. Oh, so now we have to look for a remedy for this, because obviously there is something wrong with whatever Rayleigh and Jeans and Wien's, whatever way they did their calculation. Wien's law, of course, was just an abstract assumption. He just took he took several mathematical, it was like, you know, trial and error method. He took several functions. This is often when those of you who will go into research, you will see that when you work on a problem, suppose you are working with a set of data and you have made a plot. All of you, have you all done GNU plot in your Python? You know how to plot a graph? You have done a PyPlot in your computer practicals? No?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম জিএনইউ প্লট করেছিলাম ফার্স্ট সেমিস্টারে
GNU plot. So when you plot the data, you will see that the data follows a pattern, and so your next job will be to try to fit that pattern with a mathematical expression. You either take an exponential function, or you take a, say, a Gaussian function, or you take a stretched exponential function, something, sinusoid. You just look at the pattern and you try to guess the mathematical function that fits that curve, and you try to fit it, and you see finally which function, or maybe a product of several functions, fits the data, and then you predict that, okay, this set of data that I've got from my experiment or from my theoretical simulation has this function, and so you have predicted a new function, a new sort of mathematical law. That is what is done in research. So basically Wien's law was something like that. He, by trial and error, he tried to fit in several kinds of functions into the experimental plot, and he came up with the 1 by lambda to the power 5 as the most probable function that fits it correctly. But it was seen that it fitted for a certain range of values, but it did not fit for the entire range. But Rayleigh and Jeans, actually they worked out, considering standing waves, considering how the frequency, how the energy varied with frequency, using equipartition of energy theory, and they actually derived the law. It was not that they were trying to just fit in with an abruptly assumed function. They tried to derive the law, but it was a failure. So our next job will be to find out why they failed and what rectification was done to correct this mistake. And finally, that is what gave us the quantum theory of radiation. So when the quantum theory of radiation was obtained, it was not sort of, the name quantum theory was not yet coined. It was just another attempt to find out the function or find out the nature of black body radiation that would explain the experimental curves. Okay. Later on, the name quantum theory was coined, and we will see why it was so. Okay, so can you see this new PowerPoint now? Quantum theory of radiation. Visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So again, experimental curves for black body radiation. We already did this. You can see that this is the experimental curve. Now, attempts at explaining this classically failed. First of all, Wien's distribution law. Secondly, Rayleigh-Jeans law. So we just now saw that Rayleigh-Jeans law led to the absurd result that energy continuously increased to infinity as frequency increased, and the total energy radiated at a temperature comes out to be infinite, and this led to ultraviolet catastrophe. We just now saw this. Now, Planck tried to rectify this law. He began with what Rayleigh-Jeans was doing. So he did not start anything new. He just tried to figure out what was wrong in Rayleigh and Jeans' assumption. Okay, and that led to Planck's theory of cavity radiation. So this was the historically very important year, historically important for physics. I would say historically important in terms of physics, the year 1900. Why was this year very important? It was not important back then, but it became very significant later on, because this was the year when Max Planck, for the first time in trying to rectify Rayleigh and Jeans' theory of black body radiation, shifted from continuous to discrete. Okay, let's see how. So basically, Planck predicted that the discrepancy between the theoretical law, the theoretical analysis given by Rayleigh and Jeans, and the experimental observation, that mismatch, that arose from the possible violation of the law of equipartition of energy. Now, the classical theories were all based on this law, because we know that if you take a gas, for example, if you are trying to analyze the behavior of a gas, an ideal gas, then one of the obvious laws that we always take into consideration is the law of equipartition of energy. Remember, energy is equally partitioned into the different degrees of freedom. So depending on the number of degrees of freedom of the gas molecules, the energy will be distributed. Now, since radiation was here treated as a thermodynamical quantity, because it exerted pressure on the walls of the cavity, and these were like the standing waves inside the cavity were there. So basically it was being treated as a thermodynamical entity, and in an isothermal enclosure, and therefore it was given the same treatment as was given to an ideal gas. So just like an ideal gas followed the law of equipartition of energy, similarly it was assumed that radiation would also follow the law of equipartition of energy. And so the law of equipartition of energy was unequivocally utilized to derive the expression which would explain the experimental observation. Planck somehow predicted that it was here that they were going wrong. It was here that the classical theorists were going wrong. So again, we'll take a look at this graph and see. I'm showing you this graph so many times so that you know, it sort of is etched in your memory. You should not forget it. The energy radiated with respect to, plotted with respect to either frequency or wavelength, how it looks and how it is, how the theoretical explanations, the curves according to the theoretical explanations, how they don't match this, that should be etched in your mind. Now again, see, the Rayleigh-Jeans law matches experimental curve at low frequencies, but it blows up at high frequencies. So since it does match the experimental curve at low frequencies, it is plausible to assume that at nu tends to 0, E does tend to kT. Energy per degree of freedom is kT. So average energy is kT. That is what we get according to the law of equipartition of energy. Since Rayleigh-Jeans law does match experimental curve at low values of frequency, so we can assume, or we can understand that obviously at low frequencies there must be nothing wrong. So at low frequencies, average energy is actually of the order of kT. Okay, so average energy approaches kT at low frequencies, and there is nothing wrong in it because it matches the experimental curve. But according to the experimental plot, average energy at nu tends to 0, at nu tends to infinity is 0. See, as frequency is increased, please take a look at my cursor on the screen. As nu tends to increase, the average energy is decreasing to 0. Okay, it is not exactly 0, but we can safely say that it asymptotically approaches 0 as nu tends to infinity. So Planck realized that in case of blackbody radiation, the average energy of the standing waves inside the cavity, it must be a function of the frequency. It must have some dependence on the frequency, because we can clearly see that the average energy is 0 at low frequencies, is 0 at high frequencies, and reaches a maximum somewhere in between. So obviously it is dependent on frequency. It is not independent of frequency. Now, according to the law of equipartition of energy, energy has no dependence on frequency. Energy depends only on the temperature. If you think about energy classically, then we know that energy has no dependence on frequency whatsoever. Energy of a gas in an enclosure is dependent only on the temperature. And temperature, we know, is the expression of the total kinetic energy of all the gas particles. So thermodynamically speaking, classically speaking, energy has no frequency dependence. However, when you are looking at blackbody radiation curves, you can clearly see, as Planck was the first one to sort of point this out. He was the first person to note this. You know? That is where the difference comes. When you are the first person to, several people have seen these curves, several people have tried to explain it based on whatever theory was already there. So Planck was the first person to know that no, I mean everything is all right, but we can clearly see that there is some dependence on frequency. It cannot be independent of frequency as it is classically predicted. So that is he had the doubt. Now, in order to see where this they went wrong, where the classical theorists went wrong, let us see what is the origin of the equipartition law. If we look at the origin of the equipartition law, quickly we will understand why people went wrong in assuming that the equipartition law applied in case of radiation. So classical statistical mechanics, we all know, follows Boltzmann distribution, right? All of you, I think BS sir has started classical stat mech with you, and You must have some flavor of Boltzmann statistics by now. Is it? Yes, please respond. Has he started Boltzmann distribution? Can someone unmute and respond? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I did not attend his classes, but I don't know. Dev Kumari same na.
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম ক্লাস স্টার্ট করেছে স্যার
Yes, so I mean, you have to respond, otherwise how will I?
Boltzmann distribution start করেছেন কি স্যার সেটা বলে দাও।
Okay,
সেটা মানে স্টার্ট করে
anyway, so basically this Boltzmann distribution is a part of the classical statistical mechanics that you will do. It is in the syllabus and it is supposed to be covered by BS sir. I am supposed to do the other part. So basically, if you consider classical statistical mechanics, then classical statistical mechanics is something that follows Boltzmann distribution. And Boltzmann distribution looks like this. The function is like this. So the probability that a group of particles will have an energy E. Just a second. হ্যাঁ তুষার ক্লাস নিচ্ছি একটু পরে ফোন করি কেন গো হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা আচ্ছা হ্যাঁ 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 ও আচ্ছা আমি একটু দেখি মঞ্জিসটাকে বলে কারণ আমার না এই ক্লাসটা আমার মেয়ের না পরশু একটা অ্যাডমিশন টেস্ট আছে বুঝলে তো মানে আমি এটার পরেই ওকে নিয়ে আমাকে বসতে হবে আমি দেখছি যদি মঞ্জিসটা পারে করতে আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে তুমি আমাকে পাঠাও আমি দেখছি হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে ও আজকে নাকি অনলাইন ক্লাস অফ করার নোটিশ ছিল যাই হোক আমি একটু করিয়ে নিই okay so this is Boltzmann distribution law okay that the probability that a particle will have energy E is following such a function e to the power minus e by kt e মানে small e exponential minus e by kt divided by kt okay for the time being knowing just this will suffice okay so pd is the probability of finding a given entity of a system within the energy between E and E plus D. So it may be the number of standing waves with this energy range or it may be the number of particles with this energy. So with whatever system you are considering, a part of the system with the energy between E and E plus D follows this distribution if it is following classical statistical mechanics. Okay. system contains a large number of such entities of the same kind in thermal equilibrium with temperature T. Statistical system means it contains a large number of entities, and finally we will deal with the average value. That is it. This is the essence of StatMech. In StatMech, what we do is we consider a very large number of entities in a system, and doing whatever method is followed. I mean, we will do the details when we do, for example, Boltzmann distribution, sorry, Bose-Einstein statistics, etc. Our final aim is to find an average value for this large number of system. Now, what is the present system? In the present system, what we have is, inside a cavity, there is black body radiation, and the radiation is getting reflected back and forth between the walls of the cavity, forming standing waves, right? So we have basically, please listen to this very carefully. So we have a set of simple harmonic oscillating standing waves in thermal equilibrium with the black body cavity. And if we treat them classically, then the energies of these standing waves will follow this function, Boltzmann distribution. Clear? So using Boltzmann distribution, we can get the average energy of the standing waves as, this is how we find average. Energy multiplied, the value multiplied by the probability divided by the total probability. Okay, this is the very known way of finding out mean. So mean energy or average energy is integration 0 to infinity EP divided by integration 0 to infinity P. So if you put this expression of P over here, then the average energy comes out to be KT. Okay. So this picture is, by the way, taken from Resnick and Iceberg's book. So this, see here, energy EP, the product of energy multiplied by probability plotted against energy. Okay, so the average energy is KT, the area under this curve. And if you plot just the probability with respect to E, this is the kind of curve we get, 1 by KT, and the maximum value is at 1 by KT. The maximum value of the probability is at 1 by KT. So this is followed from this. So the maximum value of probability at E tends to 0 has the value 1 by KT. See from here, as E tends to 0, the maximum value of the probability is 1 by KT. And as E tends to infinity, the value of P goes to 0. What does this mean? That the probability that particles will have very low energy is maximum, and the value comes out to be at 1 by KT. And the probability that the particles or the system will have, the entities will have very high energies is 0. This is what is exactly the, the language that this graph or this statement speaks of. That the number of systems with very low energies is highest, and the value of this highest probability is 1 by KT, whereas the number of systems with very high value of energy is 0. Okay, maintaining the average value of E equal to KT. This is the language. In language, if you try to, read out the graph or the mathematical statement in English language, then this is what it means. I'll repeat once again. What does it mean? That if you consider a system of several such standing waves with energy between E and E plus D, then we will see, if they follow Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution, then the probability that several of these systems will have a value of E tends to 0 is high. Okay, so more number of entities has the probability of having energy very low, and the value of this probability is 1 by kT, whereas very few of the entities will have very high energy, so that as E tends to infinity, P goes to 0. But everything is done maintaining the average value of E at kT. Okay. Now, what is Planck's contribution? So this is what is happening if law of equipartition of energy is maintained, and this is the origin of the equipartition law. Okay, following continuous variation of energy, assuming that energy varies continuously, this is how the law of equipartition arises. This is how it originates. When the system is following Boltzmann distribution, that is when we are treating it according to classical statistical mechanics. Now, what is Planck's contribution? What was his observation? He observed that there must be some frequency dependence of energy. He saw that when energy is 0, E tends to kT is okay, because that is what where it matches with experimental curve. But when frequency is very high, that is as nu tends to infinity, according to the experimental curve, average energy goes to 0. So this can be achieved if the calculation of E from P, that is the probability distribution, is done by treating the energy as a discrete variable instead of the classical continuous variable that it is considered to be. So throughout, we have been treating energy as a continuous variable. Till 1900, all scientists have never thought of treating energy otherwise, because it was proved that energy is electromagnetic wave and its intensity depends on the amplitude of the sine function, sine or cosine function, and amplitude has no limit. It can be 0, it can be infinity, it can be anything in between. Wavelength can be anything between 0 and infinity, ideally. And therefore energy, which is intensity, which is amplitude square, can have any value and can vary continuously. So that is how it was treated. For the first time, Planck saw that if there is a frequency dependent of energy, as is shown by blackbody radiation, then it must be calculated from the probability distribution such that it has to be treated as a discrete variable and not the classical continuous variable that we have so long been treating it according to. So what was the first step? Sorry again. Hello? Yes? Please call up later on. I'm taking a class. So what is the first? We'll just do these steps, and in detail Planck's explanation we'll do in our next class. We have one more class before the puja break, so we will do that in the next class. So what is the first step? The first step is replace integration by summation in the expression of the average energy. So average energy, so long we have been finding out by integrating. Planck suggested that replace integration by summation. So usually what do? We switch from discrete to continuous. Here we are switching from continuous to discrete. Okay. Second step is energy can assume only certain discrete values that are uniformly distributed. So long we have not considered anything close to this. Energy can have any value, right? But Planck is saying that energy can assume only certain discrete values that are uniformly distributed. What are these discrete values? 0, delta E, twice delta E, thrice delta E, etc. Integral multiples of a certain value called delta E. Delta E is the uniform interval between successive allowed values of energy. So when we are saying that not all values of energy are allowed, then what are the values allowed? Suppose till now what we were considering, say 1 unit and 2 unit. Consider the number line. All of you know the number line. Consider the number line. How many points are there between, say, 1 and 2? How many points are there between 1 and 2?
Infinite number of points.
Infinite number of points. And if we consider continuous variation, then all these infinite values are applicable to the energy of an entity. If it can have energy 1 unit and if it can have energy 2 unit, then it can as well have any values, infinite number of values between values 1 unit and 2 unit. What is Planck saying? No, this cannot be the case. He is saying that only 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 are allowed and not the points in between. So how will we decide what are the positions 1, 2, 3, 4, etc.? I'm not just saying 1, 2, 3, 4 are the integers. 1, 2, 3, 4 are the positions, ordinal numbers on the number line. So he said that delta E is the uniform interval between these successive allowed values of energy. Okay? He discovered that average energy is equal to kT when delta E is small. When this interval between successive allowed values of energy is very small, then average value of energy is equal to delta kT. Okay? But when delta E is large, then the average value goes to 0. This is what he discovered by doing a series of mathematical derivations. So this relation that average energy is equal to kT when delta is small must be valid for small nu, for small values of frequency, because that is where the graph matches experimental observation, and tends to 0 when delta is large. This must be valid for large nu, large frequencies, because that is where Rayleigh-Jean's curve goes to infinite, whereas experimental curve goes to 0. So this is possible when? Only when delta E is an increasing function of nu. For all of you, those who are not paying attention, this is not V, this is nu, the frequency. My computer font somehow writes this as V. It looks like V, but this is nu, the frequency, okay? So this is the pioneering discovery of Planck. First of all, the fact that not all values of energy are allowed, but only certain discrete values. What kind of discrete values? Are they just, haphazardly distributed? No. Discrete values are successively different from each other by a uniform interval, delta E. So how can we find out this delta E? By looking at the experimental curve, we can see that delta E is small. When delta E is small, that happens at small frequencies. E, average energy, is kT. When delta is large, average energy is 0, and that must be true for large frequencies. So we must see that delta E is a quantity which is varying as the frequency, increasing function of nu. And he assumed the simplest increasing function. What is the simplest increasing function of some parameter? The linear function, okay? So he assumed that delta E is proportional to frequency. It is an increasing function of frequency. So he assumed the simplest increasing function, that is a linear function, or delta E equal to h nu. H is simply the constant of proportionality, but this h is actually Planck's constant. The value of h is obtained by looking for the constant that gave the best fit for this theory with the experimental curve. So using this theory, he tried to now fit the blackbody radiation observed experimental curves, and whichever value of h gave the best fit is taken to be the h for delta E equal to h nu. Okay. So switch from continuous to discrete. That is how the parameter h is introduced. I leave at that. I want you to go through this very well. I went very slowly because I want you to totally understand. I want you to, I want this idea to sink in properly, slowly but properly. How Planck switched from continuous to discrete. And in our next class, we'll see that how this switch led to the totally new field of quantum mechanics, quantum theory now, and later on quantum mechanics. So basically, which is why I want you to first understand why the classical theorists went wrong, because the reason for which they went wrong is the very origin of the equipartition theory. What is the origin of the equipartition of energy theory? The fact that energy changes continuously. Okay, the energy changes continuously, which gives rise to the equipartition theory. The equipartition theory is used to explain the nature of energy distribution in blackbody radiation, and the explanation fails. So Planck points out that this is where we are going wrong. And he says that according to classical theory, energy does not have any dependence on frequency, but it depends only on temperature. But we can clearly see from the experimental curves that there is some frequency dependence of energy. Now, what should this frequency dependence be? He said that energy must not be a continuous variable, but it must have some discrete values. What kind of discrete values? They must be separated. The successive values of allowed energies of a system must be separated by a uniform interval, same interval. And this interval is denoted as delta E. And he saw that when delta E is small, average energy varies as kT, which is in accordance with classical theory, and so it must be valid for small values of frequency, which is in accordance with experimental curve. But when delta E is large, then average energy turns out to be 0, which matches with the experimental curve and should therefore be valid at high values of frequency. So clearly from this, delta E must be an increasing function of frequency. So what kind of an increasing function? It can be linear, it can be quadratic, it can be cubic, several kinds exponentially increasing. So for keeping things simple, let us assume that delta E is a linearly increasing function of nu. So delta E is proportional to nu and proportionality constant is h. So delta E equal to h nu. How will we find out h? By trying to fit the experimental curve with this new found expression of energy delta E equal to h nu, and whichever value of h gives the best fit, that value of h will be taken. So this is how h was introduced. And all of you, since you have studied quite a bit of quantum mechanics in your previous semesters, you know the paramount importance of h. Okay, so you are at a position to appreciate the importance of H, and how what simple but enigmatic roots were the circumstances that gave rise to the origin of H. Okay, so I want you to go through these few slides and appreciate this thing, and then we will go into the actual mathematics of Planck's derivation that will lead to Planck's law, which will obviously explain black body radiation. Okay, so I'll end today. Anyone has any question?